Do you want smoother and faster editing? Do you hate fumbling your piece control or failing to get high ground during endgame? Then today, we got 20 tips and tricks to help you improve, and later, we got some of the best editing maps that'll take your edits from this to this. So let's get right down to it with our first tip. Number 1, if you're intimidated by editing and wonder how the pros can do it so quickly, here's a tip to strengthen your mentality as you head in to learn advanced tips. All it takes to edit is hitting your edit bind, doing the motions, and confirming. See? Only 3 steps. Some edits are more useful than others, so if you want to narrow down the scope of things, focus on learning the motions for edits such as window edits, upper right-hand edits, floor hole edits, and more. We'll go into some details later. Soon, you'll have a whole arsenal of editing techniques that you can use on command without having to focus on the editing grid at all. That's the power of muscle memory. 2. However, if you want to reach this level of skill, you need to focus on 2 key elements: crosshair placement and timing. Crosshair placement guarantees that you can be in a place to hit all the appropriate squares on the editing grid with as little movement as possible. Timing means being able to hit the appropriate inputs quickly as you edit to achieve height, take advantage of a peak, or drop in on your opponent. If you want complete mastery over your crosshair, our in-depth aim guide has everything you need to practice like a pro. Soon, you'll be moving faster than your opponents and outplaying them at every turn. 3. If you want to improve your timing, you need optimal keybinds for editing. If you're on controller, you need to start practicing claw. One of the quickest binds for keyboard is setting editing to E. Meanwhile, in controller, setting R3 to edit works best. 4. Editing also requires smooth but stable settings. If your crosshair movement is too sensitive, it'll fly off the handle quickly. If not, you'll be editing too slow. Try to find a pro that you think fits your playstyle and copy their sense. This is a great way to get the ball rolling on your training. 5. A great way to learn crosshair placement and editing consistency with your motions is to lower your sense as much as possible till your movements are down to a crawl. This way, you can slow down and focus on the grid while you get the hang of placing and editing pieces. If you want true slow motion though, maps such as Smooth Crank Simulator have a slow motion feature, so you don't have to keep messing with your settings each time you want to train this way. Later, you can speed up the footage and see what your edits will look like once you've mastered it. 6. Once you've learned the different editing grid combinations needed to pull off edits, it's time to tighten your crosshair placement. So, while you're free building, practice tightening your edits little by little till you're making successful edits while barely moving your crosshairs at all. Learn properly, and you should look like this. 7. If you want to master your crosshair placement and learn the quickest motions to complete an edit, try this Aim Plus Mechanics map. You'll be performing a variety of edits as you move from piece to piece, but the best part is that it shows you where your crosshair should be for the most optimized edit. Think of this map as training wheels for your brain. 8. However, tightening your crosshairs is just one way to trimming your edit time. If you know the edit you want, then make sure your crosshair is always aligned with the first square you need to hit before you place your build. This way, when you open up your editing grid, you're immediately in place to hit the first square in the chain. This simple trick helps you speed things up without having to readjust your crosshairs at the start of each edit. 9. If you're doing multiple edits one after another, make a habit of ending your edits where the next edit will begin. This way, you can quickly start working on the next one without having to slow down. This can be great for claiming the high ground during the endgame or keeping up with the storm while you're stuck on the low ground. 10. Now, if you're making edits with the intention of taking a shot at your opponent, try this. Before confirming, practice finishing your edits in a way that leaves your crosshairs as close to your opponent as possible. This means once the edit is complete, you can instantly be ready to take the shot and deal some damage. Later, we'll show you some maps that you can use to teach yourself to optimally do this without getting hit yourself. 11. We mentioned this before, but a quick refresh. If you're on controller, claw is a must-have if you want quicker editing speed. With every button more accessible, you can switch between modes faster while staying on the move. Now, this is just essential if you want to get the high ground. However, if you have learner's block and can't seem to improve, try this. Go to your settings. If you want less input delay or ping, turn off the settings that record your matches. This should reduce the input delay and lighten the load on your response time. 12. Dipping frames are bad, but even if they're fluctuating between between 140 and 160, it's still messing up your consistency. If you let this happen, you'll start missing edits and your timing will be thrown off. So, cap those FPS just above your resolution for frame consistency. 13. Whether you play on roller or M&K, one of the most important things you need to keep an eye on is your FPS. You want it high, but you also want it as stable as possible. And turn on auto confirm edits and auto confirm reset. Having these both on makes any controller player's life so much easier. 14. Controller players may not be able to achieve the same speeds as keyboard and mouse players. However, they could still rely on smart plays to get a one-up on their opponents. While training your edits, focus more on consistency rather than speed. Then, start watching how some of the best players in the game respond to other players during fights. If you can learn to be a smarter player, then you'll be able to counter most of your opponent's plays and trick them into leaving themselves open. But if you're interested in easily transitioning from a controller player to a keyboard and mouse player, you can use the maps from this video or even programs like Aim Labs to get used to new control schemes. 15. Don't forget to reset your edits. While learning to open up edits, many players forget that closing your edit is still a valid strategy. Resetting your edit can trick enemies into wasting their pre-fire shot, but it can also prevent your opponent from getting an angle on you after you're done taking your own shot. 16. A great way to practice your edits is by doing double and then triple edits. Grinding these specific edits will train you to perform multiple edits one after another. Raiders Practice Edit Map is one of the best ways to challenge yourself and develop muscle memory. You can even use this map if you want to try out new settings. 17. Upwards edits and downwards have their fair share of differences. You'll need upwards editing skills to gain high ground during the endgame, and you'll need downwards editing to finish off opponents you manage to trap below you. Being able to properly downwards edit can make the difference between seeing the opportunity for a refresh and actually obtaining it. 18. Some of the best edits, such as the Peanut Butter Peak or the Mongrel Classic, require you to be comfortable moving while editing. However, some edits even require you to keep gravity in mind, such as low ground edits that let you take jabs at players a bit further above you and then use gravity to get back behind cover. Before